Good morning, everyone. We're back with more Barnstable This Morning. I'm Sarah Colvin, and joining me live in studio, our Assistant Town Manager, Mark Ells. Mark, good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
How are you today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good. I can't
Great.
believe we're getting through August. It's unbelievable, going by too fast.
Once you hit 4th of July and then the pops, and next thing you know, the kids will be back to school.
I know.
So it flies.
Unbelievable. So let's talk about communication today, Mark. And of course, what we do here on Barnstable This Morning is try to communicate with the public. But I think that's one of the big questions that people have out there is, how do I get in touch with the town leaders that are important, and how do I bend their ear with the issues that matter to me?
Well, you can always do it the old-fashioned way, which is you can call us or call our office and set up an appointment. In the big picture of things, it helps that the town manager's office knows the types of communications that are coming in. I don't mean, for every pothole or sign or dog barking, but in general, if it's a big issue, don't be afraid to reach out to us. And there's so many ways now that we can do that. Some of the more complicated or sophisticated ways, I should say, like what you get involved in. But then there's, again, the telephone, face-to-face, and email. And when you send your email into the town website, it does come to the town manager and I. So every email that comes in, it's either sent to us directly or we're copied on it. And we do read them, and we literally get hundreds of emails a day.
And what's the strategy for response? Because obviously getting hundreds of emails a day is a challenge to respond to absolutely everything. So what's the strategy for responding?
Well, it is, and I suppose that each person may have a different approach to that, but what we try to do, because of the structure we have in our organization, is delegate it out to the appropriate place. For example, you have a concern about something your neighbor's doing, and you want to know that somebody's coming out to look at what they're doing so that you know that it's in compliance with zoning, perhaps. Right away, what we do is we send an email off to Regulatory Services. And Regulatory Services is one of our departments, and under it falls 4 other divisions. 2 of the divisions that might get involved immediately in that are our building department and our health department. So by sending it to Regulatory Services, then it gets communicated to building. I typically will also do a little bit of a follow-up, and because directors are busy, as Tom and I are, but we don't want to miss these things, especially if there's an urgency to it. So don't ever be afraid to say to us, "This is really important." I know everything's important, but if there's certainly an emergency nature to it, call 911. But short of that, then just feel free to communicate it to us and say to us, "I think you ought to look at this today," or "I think if you could get to this week." That sort of back and forth is really helpful to us so that we can gauge what we say to our Public Works Department or our Regulatory Services Department. Now, it's important that you get that communication in. I've had so many residents say to me, "Well, I didn't want to say anything." Our residents and our eyes and our ears out there in the field, and I know we have trucks all over the place, and I know we have police officers and other people, inspectors out there, but the street you live on, you know best. And so anything you can share with us, we will try to put it to the right location. And then I try to follow up, especially if the resident ends up calling afterwards and says to me, "Well, what's the status of that? Have you even come out and looked at it?" So.
Exactly, and I think that what you just said, I didn't want to bother, or I didn't think I had, was my place to say, I think that stops a lot of people from asking that question. And what would you say to people to kind of encourage them if they do have something that is bothering them or that is of a concern, that might encourage them to just pick up the phone or send that email?
Well, I think that, even a street sign down, something, a limb hanging over the road, you might say, well, I don't know if I want to call on that, but it's absolutely worth it because we have in place kind of routine routes that we address for all of those different departments that I've described, and it just helps us to know that, 1600 Craigville Beach Road, there's a limb growing over, and every time that big truck drives by, it actually hits it. That helps, because then we put that into the routine and we make sure that that's addressed. Now, how do you do that? Well, you can call, and most of our departments have people who will take your information, and most of our departments have work order systems, so once you call, it gets logged in, and there is some action taken within a stated time frame. Certainly the police and public works may be the most formal at that, though health and the building commissioner follow a pretty rigorous pattern as well, to get out there in a timely manner, identify if there's a violation or an issue, and then to address it. And then sometimes where I think we drop the ball, and I've done it myself, is we don't get back clearly to the resident or whomever had called. Or we do it, but they're waiting. I mean, this is their life, this is their neighborhood, and we're investigating something, and they have no idea if we've even looked into it. So that's an area that I think, and certainly our public suggestions is helpful, and you've helped us greatly in that area to be able to communicate back out to people and let them know where we are on things.
Indeed, and I think it's worth it to mention the See-Click Fix app as well, because that's
Yes.
another really great way for people to communicate. If you see a pothole, if you see a street sign down, if you see a street light out, you can take a picture of it,
Yep.
and it goes right into the system. And I think that what the great thing about the See-Click Fix is, you can go online and you can see clearly the follow-up and people's responses.
Absolutely. You can also, I don't know if this is a trick, but if you go on Public Works website and report a problem, but it's not a Public Works problem, they will forward it to the right department. We're all tied in together, obviously, and so even if it's a health complaint, but you have no idea how to get, and you've used the Public Works one, and you know how to get there, if you go there, they will make sure it gets to the right place.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I'm not telling you, Public Works gets inundated with all the calls, but
I've no
usually
doubt.
you can send it general email, and Tom and I will forward it the same way. So whatever method you choose, we will try to be responsive to that call.
Indeed, and certainly seeing the internal communications, I've seen the way the emails come in and go around, and I can assure the public that they definitely do get read by a large amount of people and funneled to the proper channels. So. Good stuff. Want to talk about the lifeguard competition. It's always very exciting.
Yes.
We've had it here in Barnstable. It is going to be a little different this year out on Head in the Meadow Beach in Truro, which is absolutely gorgeous. Not to downplay any of our beautiful beaches here in Barnstable. It was pretty spectacular up there in Truro. And I know that your daughters have competed in years past and will be competing coming up. What do you look forward to the most for the lifeguard competition?
Oh, just to see all these, young, excited people down there, competing in this manner. I mean, this is something that, each town's a little different. Some have tryouts, some don't, but obviously to swim the distance, run the distance, paddle the distance, do the rescue exercises, you have to be well trained and in decent shape. So they all come together in just this great setting, and you've said that, Head of the Meadow is a beautiful spot, and I've probably been to a half dozen of these. And, you just watch the competition, and they all work together. It is a competition, but it's also just a day that they get together and they do what our lifeguards on Cape Cod do, and I think they do a great job for us. Now you got the whole focus on sharks down Cape a little bit, not here. So that plays into the discussion, at least.
That's
Hopefully
right.
not into reality, but
I
into
hope
the
not.
discussion of where they do this.
Yeah.
But it's always an exciting, I think it starts at 9 a.m. on Thursday.
Great, 9 a.m. on Thursday.
I
And
believe.
Barnstable has won the past several years in a row in their category, so let's hope for another win for our Barnstable lifeguards. They
Yep.
do a fantastic job.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, Mark, I thank you so much for stopping by, and we will chat with you again sometime soon. Have a great week.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Mark Ells, of course, is our Assistant Town Manager. Bill Butler, our Interim Superintendent of Schools, is up next. But first, let's find out if those fish are biting. Captain Gary Brown has today's Barnstable This Morning fishing report.